Hi folks, this is DF going over the solve path for the Mouldy Sandwiches Sudoku element. So just so that you know what colours I'm going to be using green for my sandwich fillings, or things which aren't in the sandwich at all, and I'll be using red to mark out the crusts. So the first thing I do with a sandwich Sudoku is I'm always looking for what we can and can't, more importantly, place crusts. So if we look at this 33, well, it's either going to be 32 or 34. We'll come back to that later, don't worry. But the key thing is, a 32 long one will always need, I believe, a 32 long sandwich clue will always need, at very least, 6 green cells long. So it'll be either like that or it'll be like that. So no matter where we place the sandwich clue here, it's always going to end up being like that. And you probably notice we've actually got 33, it's creating almost like a grid around the outside of this. So we can quite happily put these in, and voila! Now the 28 clue is actually doing something very similar, because 27, well, 26 you can do as 8, 7, 6 and 5, but 27 you always need 5 squares, so it'll be like that, or like that, or like that. So either way, all those 3 central boxes get filled in, and we can do the same at the top. Now let's look at this box at the bottom here with the 7 in it. We can see this 9 clue here, and we can see, just as importantly, that you're going to need both sandwich crusts in here, because every box has to have a 1 and a 9 in it. Every box needs 2 sandwich clues. Now if I put 1 there, then the other sandwich clue is going to be right next to it. And there's no way I can fit a sandwich of size 10 or size 8 in a sandwich that's got no room. So we can say quite easily that this box here, it must be not a crust. So what's left in the box? 2 crusts. And now if we look at this column, column 4, we can see we've got 2 crusts in it. So we can just fill that in quite happily. And now we can look at this top box and we say, oh, 2 crusts. And before I go any further, we can say row 3 and row 7 both have 2 crusts. So we can quickly mark those in. Now let's look at this middle column, column 5, with the 2 in it. We see down here, this is a 1, so it's either going to be a 2 or 0. Now if it was a 2 clue, with this 2 already being here, we'd have to have sandwich crusts around both sides, which breaks the puzzle in about 5 different ways. And if we put it down here, we're going to have at least 2 plus 3 is 5, which is just not going to work. So this has to be our crust in this column. So we've got 2 crusts next to each other, so we've got another 0. We can just use that and we can fill in the box. Next one I looked at is this 10 clue. Now 10 clues will either be 9 or 11. But, and this is the key point, a 9 clue needs 2 boxes and a 11 clue needs at least 2 boxes. So if I try to put a crust here or here, there's not going to be enough room. So I can't place a crust here. So I have to look on the right hand side. I can say 2. If I try to put the crust here, well, that's not going to work, is it? Because you've got 7 there, that's nowhere near enough. So let's put that there, and we've now got another filled in row. Now this next one, let's look at this 16 here. We can see the 16 is going to go across this middle row. We can see because we can't put it like that or like that, so it's going to have to be some form of something like that. So you've got 1 on this side, on the right hand side, and 1 on the left. Either way, we know we've got 1 on this right hand side, so there can never be 1 in those 2 boxes I've just filled in. And we know, thanks to this 18 clue, that there's no way this box here can be 1, because otherwise you'd have a 0 again, which wouldn't work. So now we've got a red in this square here. And that gives us more information, because of course it does. Let's look at this 16. Even if that's a 15 and made up of 7 plus 8, there's no way that this here could be a red, because there's no way to fit 15 into a single box. It don't fit. So we can put a green down here and a red up here. And what does that tell us? We've now got this 30. And getting something into this 30 is really useful, because there's no way you're going to fit anything on this side. And if we think of 30, well, we know that 26 can be done in 4, but anything above that will need at least 5. So we're going to have 5 ingredient slots basically, and a crust at the end. And look at that, we've got a 33 to fill in. So we know that this can't be the crust. And no matter if it's 32 or 34, and yes, I know I will get back to this point, that can't be 1. So this box here is 1. And we can even use this 6 and say there's no way it's going to reach any further than here. So we can quickly fill this in. And as you can see, we're starting to eliminate all these different options. This goes filled in. There's now only 1 spot for red here. There's only 1 red spot left in this column. There's no way that this 28 can be in 1 single box, so that's going to go all the way across. I'm going to put another red here. And same as before, you notice all this 33, if it's a 32 or a 34, it's either going to have 1 or 3 on the outside. And there's no way of doing those any smaller, especially if you could. Well, let me rephrase that. Slightly better way of phrasing it, sorry. If I put the red box here, if I put the other crust here, I'd have to add up this entire row, which obviously I can't, because 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 is 35, it's too high. So this has to go here. This guarantees those 2. That also guarantees that, and we've got 1 last set of sandwich crusts. Okay, that's step 1. You find out I've not put in a single number there. I've literally just marked where all my 1s and 9s need to go. So I can now quite happily go around the board and just fill them in, because I've got this 9 here, it tells me which way around they are. So that will have to be a 9. Oops, it's not going to let me do that. That's going to be a 1, a 9, a 1, a 9, a 1, a 9, a 1, a 9, and hopefully a 1. Voila, a lot more grid filled in. So now I'm going to discuss things which we can fill in. These 32 rows and columns first of all. Now we know that a full set of all the 7 ingredients is 35. If I try to make this 34, then unfortunately what that means is I'd have to put a 1 here. Now that's just impossible. There is no way to make these 6 digits add up to 34 without either causing a duplicate or using a 9 in the grid. So it doesn't work. So what we have to say is that this can't be 34, it has to be 32. And we can actually say the exact same for every case where we've tried to put a 34 and you have to put in a 32. We can also plug in anywhere the sandwiches are 0, are patently obvious. And everything else will sort of fill in as we go. There are a couple more which we can deduce right away, but we'll come back to it. So let's start with one. Let's look at this 9. So this 9 row, let's side box please. This 9 row is either going to be a 10 or an 8. Now if I look into this middle box here, there's no way I can fit a 10 into there. So this row is an 8 row, and we can put a nice happy 8 in. Let's look at this column, this 4, but 4 is going to be either 3 or 5, and we can see where it's going to go. A single digit in that sandwich. Now if that's a 5, you've got 2 5s in one box, which would make me unhappy. So we're going to put in a 3 instead. And I do apologise for the neighbours drilling, they're in a mood apparently. So that's a 3. Now let's look at this box here and apply everyday Sudoku. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no 6, 7, 8 and 9 looking at this single box. It is a single, so we're going to put it right there. So what's left now? We've got a 2, a 4 and then we've got a 4, a 6 and an 8 left to go into this box. Let's try that again, shall we? We've got a 7, an 8 and a 4. I promise I know how to solve a Sudoku. So let's look at this 16. Now if I put a 7 there, then I can already say that's not going to work. Because if that's a 7, that will create 16, which I know it says 16, but it's a liar. So it's either going to be 15 or 17. So then I think, okay, can it be a 4? The 4 would create a 13, way too low, so it's going to have to be an 8. So I'm going to mark that on right away, because that is now adding up to 17. It's always just nice to have them marked down just for reference. Now, where can we look to next? Now, we've got to put in a 4 and a 7. I think the 7's going to be, well, let's try the 4 in this box here, because we've got this 19 clue down here. 8 plus 4 gives us 12, and on 5 gives us 17. There's no way that can be a 4, because 17 is 2 away from this 19, so this isn't a 4, it's a 7. So we'll quickly mark that on again. I said, even if we don't come back to these, it's always just nice to have them marked. It also just tells us later what we still haven't used fully. We can say, this is going to be a 4. Now that's useful, because if you look at this 7, 7 is either 6 or 8. Now if it was 8 in this sandwich, that would be 4 and 4, which would be, well, impossible. So it's going to be a 2, and we can guarantee that this is a 6. Now, where do we look to here? Let's look at this 10, because you might be screaming at it. This is either a 9 or an 11. But if I make this a 9, what have we got? We have 2 plus 5 is 7. To make it 9, just put another 2 in, which ain't gonna work. So we're going to have to put in a number 4. 4 please, thank you. Which means that this is an 11. Next step, we're going to look at these two boxes, so this one and this one, the opposite corners. And we know that we've got a 32. So we've got 1 and then all the digits from 2 through to 8, one of which has to be here. Now, this is just one where, if you're familiar with sandwich Sudokus, you'll probably be screaming this. This has to be a 3. The way you can think of it is, the digits from 1 to 9 add up to 45. So from here, so taking away the sandwich crust, because we don't count them, that's 35. So if you add everything up, but you have 3 left over, because you 35 take 32, gives you just 3 left over. And that lets you place those ones in. Let's see what we can look at now. This 6 looks fairly promising at first, but we can probably see actually, if I put small numbers in, it's a 5 or a 7. I couldn't tell you which it is yet. What I can tell you is this number 30. Now, if it was 31, that would mean that these, if this is 31, so if it's 31, then these would add up to 31, add to the 1 and the 9, and that would add up to 41. That means that the leftover 2 here would add up to the number, yes, the number 4, which you can't do. You could do either 2 and 2, well, that obviously doesn't work, or 3 and 1, which doesn't work. So it's not 31, this has to be a 29, and that leaves 6 in these two boxes, because we've got 29 here, plus your 10, that's 39 to 5, so 6 left over. In fact, there's only one way of making that. You can't use 5 and 1, or 3 and 3. What you have to use is a 2-4 pair. I do hope that's showing up clearly at your end. So, where can we look now? I think this 6 is quite powerful. Now this 6 is going to either be a 5 or a 7. Now if it's a 5, there's only one combination that works in these two boxes, because it's a 2-box sandwich. If it's a 5, you can't have 1 4, because the 1 just kills that automatically. So you'd have to be 2 3, but 2 3 doesn't work because of this 3 in the corner. So this can never be a 5, so it's a 7. Let's think about what the combo has to be. 7 we can make in 3 ways. 1 and 6, obviously not, there's a 1 there. 2 and 5, maybe. And 3 and 4, well 3 and 4's out because of this 3 here. So this is a 2-5 pair. And what's really interesting here is this 2-4 pair. No matter how we try to twist it, one of these two numbers will be the number 2. So this box can never be the number 2. That would break everything. So this box must be the 5 and this must be the 2. So we are slowly but surely making some progress on what has to be where. So where can we look now? Let's look here. This box here is, with that 5, this box is actually fixed. We have a 1, a 2, no 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8 and a 9. That will always be a 3, no matter how hard it tries. And now this box, we've got a 1, a 2 by the virtue of that pair, a 3, a 4, a 5, no 6, but a 7, 8, 9. So this has to be a 6. Because it's useful to mark these things, if we think about what's left in this row, we're just missing the 7 and the 8 from it, so I'll just quickly mark that in. Because it might not be useful yet, but it will be later. Let's look at this column. We've got a column with 8 digits in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, no 5. Might want to put the 5 in. Right, let's look to see if we can find anything else that might be useful. What else can be useful on this grid? Let us look at this little set here. This one is going to look a little bit wonky at first, so bear with me. Let's think about where the 3 is going to go in this box, and where the 3 is going to go in the box below. Now, in the top box, there's only 2 spots the 3 can go, here and here. Every other spot is ruled out just by standard Sudoku rules. Now let's think, what about this box below? Well, we can't have a 3 along here, and we can't have a 3 going up thanks to this 3 at the bottom, so this is also a 3. So we've got a little box really, haven't we? And what's really important here is that this column here, this 16 column. Let's think. If we've got a 4 And because a 3 can't go here, or here, or here, or here, we have to have a 3 in one of these two boxes. So let's think how that affects our 16. If we say that this 16 is supposed to be 17, then we've got a 4 and a 3, which is 7. We'd have 10 left over, which couldn't get into a single box. So there's no way, because there needs to be a 4 and a 3, there's no way that can be a 17. It has to be a 15. So if we go back onto our small numbers, we can actually say 4 plus 3 is going to be 7, so we're going to need a 3 and an 8. So we have a 3-8 pair there, which has appeared almost out of nowhere. Now let's look at what that does. That 3-8 pair there means that none of these 3 can be an 8, and that none of these 3 can be an 8. So the 8 has to go there. So, what can we find now? Let us see what there is to be found. Let us look at the 3 in this box at the bottom here. We'll just use regular Sudoku. There's a 3 here, going up and down, and there's a 3 going across. I do apologise if you spotted that earlier. Trying to solve a puzzle from memory is a weird experience, okay? So that gives us that. Let's look at this column here with the 19 in it now. What's missing from it? I can't see a 2 or a 4 in it, so it's going to have a 2-4 pair, but oh look! There's a 4 there that's stopping that from being a 4, so we already know that's a 2, and that's a 4. And just for the sake of housekeeping, this is going to be a 2-6 pair because of what's left in the box. Okay, we are slowly but surely making progress here. Let us see where else we can make some progress. Let's see. Can we make progress? I know this puzzle is solvable, because I tested it so many times. Let's see. I do apologise for the slight wait. I'll probably cut this out if I think about it. So let us think. Ah yes, there we are. Just remember your own solve path. Look at this 27. Sorry, 28. Now that's going to be the 27 or 29. So I'm actually going to pull up my calculator here. So that's either going to be 27 or 29. So that means that these two outside cells will either be 35, take away 29, which will be 6, or 35, take away 27, which will be 8. Either way, I can't put a 7 in either of those. And the reason that I can't is because if either of those is a 7, then a 6 outright wouldn't work because it would be more than 6. And for an 8, I'd have 7, I'd have to put a 1, which is impossible. So the only spot I can put a 7 on this row is right there. Oh, and let's make it slightly larger so we can all see it. So, can we tell anything about, let's see, yes, of course. Let's consider where the 2's need to go in this box. Well, we can just simply say outright that no matter where we put it, it's going to be either here or here, because the others are just ruled out by Sudoku. So that rules out that row, this 2 rules out this row. Now that seems rather useless at first, but we've got a 2-4 up here, and the 2's are locked in here. So if I put a 2 here, there'll be a 2 there. And likewise, if I do the opposite, it'll just mirror. So no matter which way I put them, there'll always be a 2 in these last two columns, in columns 8 and 9. So you know that these can't be 2. So by definition, these are going to have to be 2. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can we put in anything further? Yes, we can. Now, what we said before was that this was going to have to add up to either 6 or to 8. And what digits do we have left? We have, in this row, 2, 4 and 6. 2, 4 and 6. And the first thing we can do is we can prove that this has to be a 29 clue, because there's no way that these two add up to 8. The two ways you can make them add up to 8 are as 2 and 6. There's 2 and 6. Oh, I need to type. But if you put 2 and 6, then you'd kill this box entirely and you'd break the puzzle, which would leave me sad. So the alternative would be to go for a 4, 4, which is just silly on the face of it. So this can never add up to 8, so it's going to have to add up to 6 somehow, which means this needs to be a 29. Now the only way you can get them adding up to 6 is, and it'll look familiar, 2, 4, 2, 4. You're guaranteed a 2 in one of those two, so this can now never be a 2, it has to be a 6. Which means this has to be a 2, with 1, 2. If we look at this 2 here, it turns this into a 4 for us, and this into a 2. So, where can we go from here? What can we see? Let's look at this box here. Where can the 4 go in it? There's a 4 here, and a 4 here that's killing off these two rows. And this 4 here just forces it straight into there. This lets us place the 5 in there. This 5 goes across, this 5 goes down, which makes that the 5 by default. So also we've got a few more digits into our grid. What can we find next? Can we find anything next? That's the question of the day. Let us consider the 4 in this box up the top left. This 4 rules out this box. This 4 rules out these two boxes. And this 4 rules out this box, so this needs to be a 4. So what's left to go into this box? 6, 7 and 8. Just for the sake of reference, I'm going to mark those in, just so that we have them to hand. Now, can we see anything else? Let's look what's going to go into this bottom row here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to have to put a 5 somewhere in here. Can't go into that one. Could go there. Could go there. We're going to have to put a 6 somewhere. 6s can go anywhere. And we're going to have to put an 8 somewhere. The 8s can go in either of these two at the moment. Oh, yep, let's take out one of the obvious ones. We marked this as a potential for a 2 earlier. That's no longer possible. So we now can say with complete certainty that's a 2. And once again, I do apologise if you saw that earlier. Looking very quickly at this column, we can see we've got a 5, 6. So we'll go along to the top and also mark that as a 5, 6. So we've now got 1, 2, so we've got, let's look at this row here very briefly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where can I put a 5? I can't put a 5 or a 2 in this box. So no matter which I put in there, this actually creates a guaranteed 2, 5. Let's get rid of those. And what does that leave into this box here? That's going to have to be a 7. Now let's look over here, because this is where I think we can go back to actually using these Sudoku clues, these sandwich clues rather, that you know the puzzle's named after. So these are going to be 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. And let's look at this 18. Because it's going to be either 17 or it's going to be 19. Now either way, if that's a 2, that'll be 2 plus 8 is 10. And because that can be at most a 6, so 16, there's no way that could ever be a 2. So that has to be a 5. Which makes that the 2. This can no longer have a 5 in it. So it's either a 4 or a 6. And let's think, 8 plus 5 gives us 13. So most rudely, we can't figure out which way around this is yet, because add on the 4 and it'll be 17. Add on the 6 and it'll be 19. This clue is very rude. Not sure if that showed up. It is a very rude clue, so I'll put that up here because I can. Can we figure anything else out now? Let us look and see. Hungary. Ah, yes, let's look at this column here. We have a 5, 6, 7, 8 quad. What that means is that this cell, this cell, this cell, and this cell have to be from 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if I try to put a 8 here, for instance, there would be no room in that column for a 3 by my eyes. So this has to be a 3. So what's left in this row now, in this box rather? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 6, 8. We might not know which way around they are, but we're guaranteed that regardless of which way around they are, that if we don't put a 7 in this box on the right, you'll never get a 7 into that row. Let's look very quickly at this 2. This 2 being here removes the possibility of this one being a 2, which leaves that a 4. This a 2. And this 4 means that this one can't be a 4. So it's a 5, 6. Now if we now look, this is a 5, 6, this is a 5, 6, so that's a pair. So that can't be a 5 or a 6. So it has to be the missing 4, with 1 4 not 2. Okay. Slowly but surely we are making progress through this rather big and scary grid. And we have actually just confirmed there that this is not an 18, sorry, not a 19, but it is indeed a 17. And you may have noticed by now, we've used up almost all our sandwich clues. Or at least we know what they are, which is, quite frankly, far more than we can often get to say. Let's look at this box down here, because it's got a nice easy 3 for us, because 3 can't be there. By this 3. This 3 stops being in this column, and the 3 along here means we can just quickly place it in, like so. And if we think about what needs to be here now, we know this row is missing 5, 6 and 7. So we can actually plug in. It can't be a 5, but it could be a 6 or a 7, so we'll just mark that in, just to save us a headache later. So you see, we are getting very close. Now I just told a little white lie. We've used almost all the sandwiches, but there's 2 we haven't used. We've got this 6, and this last minute addition, this number 30, that's restricting this diagonal. We can see we've only got 1 sandwich along the diagonal. And let's quickly add up what we have so far. We've got 4, 3 is 7, 2 is 9, 16, 18. So 18 means that this 5, 7, 3, 8 well, we'd say it would normally add up to 12, but really it's going to add up to 11. Oh, is it going to get rid of it? It's either going to be 11 or it's going to be 13. Now, there are many ways you can deduce this, but there is only one legal combination. But the way I think is going to be easiest for us is to say, okay, we're after one of two odd numbers, and we're adding two numbers together. That means we're going to have an odd number and an even number. And the only even number we have from the 5, 7, 3 and 8 is the 8. So we can now mark that in. We can get rid of that 3. That 3 is now guaranteed, so we'll just quickly do some clean up here. So please bear with me whilst I fill in a Sudoku. And we've just made things a little bit easier. Now looking, we had 11 or 13. Adding on the 8, if we added on 7, or 4 plus 7, let's try that again. 4 plus 7 would be 11, so 3 would bring us up to 14, 16, 23, 31, 33. 33 would be too high, so it can't be 7. And it's actually probably one of the more important ones. This has to be a 5. Because that frees up, well, it guarantees this isn't a 5, so this is only 6 or 8. There's now only one spot for 7 in this box, which is going to be that one there. So we're going to get rid of this. We're going to have another 6, 8 pair that we're going to have to fix later. You see another 6, 8, and there's quite a lot of 6, 8s on this grid already. I do hope you're not getting sick of the things. We now have actually used every single sandwich, so now it is just doing a Sudoku. Because this has to be a 5. We've confirmed that this 30 was actually a 31, which I'm just going to mark there just for sake of completeness. And we'll carry on. So we've now got, what can we quickly fill in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can we put a 7 in? Yep. Look at the 7 there and there. There has to be a 7, which makes this a lovely 5, 6. We've got 1, 2, and we've got a 5, 6 pair. So we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is going to have to be an 8. Looking at this box here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's hope the puzzle doesn't break. So this is going to have to be a 6 or an 8. There's only one spot left for 7 in this box. So we now can turn that into a 7. That's an 8. What's left in this box? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 7. Well, that can't be a 7, so it's going to have to be a 5. That's going to have to be the 7, which guarantees the 6. This guarantees that's the 8. That's the 6, that's the 8, that's the 6, that's the 8, that's the 6, that's the 5, that's the 6, and that is a 5. Oop. And that is how you solve a rather rude mouldy sandwich Sudoku. And if you listen to all that, God bless.